where we will be going over the ins and outs of our reconsideration process that just opened today. My name is Alice Young. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the Director of Admissions for Outreach and Recruitment. I'm joined by a couple of colleagues in the Financial Aid Office, Lauren and Jorge, who are going to be assisting and helping to answer your questions today. So I believe we have the Q&A active. Is that correct, Lauren? Is that the best? Okay, so if you have a question as we go through this presentation, you are welcome to use the Q&A feature. There also should be plenty of time at the end of the session to answer any other questions. So if you want to go ahead and wait till the end and ask questions, we can go ahead and do that as well. So let's go ahead and get started. So in today's session, we are going to be going over our gift aid process in general. What does that look like? What do we look for when we're awarding gift aid offers? What is our timeline? I can kind of walk you through where we are at in our process right now. What does reconsideration timeline look like? Then I'm going to be going into the nuts and bolts of reconsideration and giving you advice about how you might go through this process. I'm going to go through some important things to keep in mind, like how to choose an offer, if you're comparing offers with other school, other types of aid to consider, all of those things. And then I'll go through some frequently asked questions that we are asked a lot at this time of year. And then, as I mentioned, there'll be plenty of time for your questions at the end. So first off, what do we look for in gift aid decisions? So this is just in general for either initial gift aid awards or for reconsideration awards. Everybody that's been admitted, obviously, we really like your application. We really want you to be here at Berkeley Law. We do have a limited amount of money and funds that we can give out through the gift aid process. So how do we distinguish who do we give gift aid for? So one of the things that we look for is merit aid. We are not a school that uses a certain metrics, like if you have an LSAT and a GPA of this number, you get a certain amount. We are performing a comprehensive, holistic review of your application. Just as we do in our admissions process. So you can rest assured when we are looking for a gift aid, we really are basically rereading your application. So everything that you put in there, your personal statement, any of the addenda, your resume, your CAS report with your GPA, your LSAT, any other degrees you have, letters of recommendation, all of that is being taken into consideration. And then what are those characteristics that we look for to distinguish who we offer aid to? We're looking for those that have a history of leadership or demonstrated interest in innovation or entrepreneurship. Maybe you have longstanding knowledge or extensive experience in a particular field or a particular population. Maybe you have multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary approach in your academic experiences. Maybe you have a graduate degree in something. Maybe you have extensive public service or public interest work experience or military service. Or you have a record of success that would have not been predicted given personal or family circumstances, like, for example, being first generation college grad. So all of these, of course, it's going to be individual based on you. And when you're thinking about sort of how best to maybe market yourself in this process, it doesn't necessarily have to be like nobody's checking off every single box of this, but I think I would focus on one of these things that you really want to tell us a little bit more about when you're advocating for yourself to receive gift aid. So which one of these things kind of stands out for you as like, yes, that's the case where I feel like I should be awarded a gift aid offer. Sorry, excuse me. Let me go back and talk a little bit about need-based aid as well. And so at Berkeley Law, we do not have a separate need-based review process. We do not award like scholarships, and then there's a separate like financial aid need-based process. Everything is comprehensive for both merit and or need. So in order to be considered for any need-based aid, you do need to submit the supplemental gift aid application. We call it the SGA, which is sent out to you after you're admitted, and we do ask for you to complete it within 3 weeks. This is a really comprehensive form that we've developed that goes through both sort of your current financial circumstances and also sort of historical need. For example, growing up, did your family receive any sort of benefits, anything like that? So we do feel like it is a pretty holistic review for need. And so just make sure if you have not submitted the SGA and you feel like you have need that you would like to be taken into consideration, that you submit that. And then when we do our reconsideration review, we are going to again be looking through your general admissions application for any sort of merit need. We're also, if you submitted the SGA, going to be looking through that for any need-based aid. And so our total package that we offer to you, of gift aid, and we use the term gift aid to just mean any sort of non-loan, non-repayable aid to the school. Could be merit, it could be need, or it could be a combination of both merit and need. So rest assured, if you've submitted that, you are being considered for need. There is no separate process that you need to go through. Let's talk a little bit about our timeline and where we are at in our process right now. So our initial gift aid offer started going out in December as we admitted people, and has pretty much concluded. Yesterday, most of you might have received an email from us. Either you have received an initial offer or you got an email from us that we weren't able to extend an initial offer. For those of you that were very recently admitted in early March, right before ASW, or in any subsequent people that we admit, we are still going to be conducting those reviews. And so you can still wait if you would like to see if you are getting an initial offer. But if you do have an offer from another school with a pressing deadline, so if you have another offer that you're seriously considering with like an April 1st deadline, I would say go ahead and just jump right into reconsideration. The form is open for you. So if you need to get a decision from us relatively quickly, I would not wait to hear back from us about initial, and I would just go right into reconsideration. And you will be, and if you were a recent admit, you would be receiving an email from our office by the end of next week, letting you know again if you're receiving an initial award or not. And so right now, most of our initial gift aid process is complete, and we are opening up reconsideration. The form opened this morning and it'll be open until April 30th. So you do have about 6 weeks to complete the form. We are going to be reviewing those requests. Basically weekly, we're going to be responding to those requests. I would imagine our first offers would probably go out sometime next week. That would be about the earliest that you might hear from us. And then basically every week, we're going to be sending out new rounds of offers through the beginning of May. Our response deadlines, general response deadlines are April 15th, which is our first one coming up. And those are for people who have not received a gift aid offer. So April 15th, you have 3 options. You can either say, yes, you're coming to Berkeley Law. There's a tentative option that extends your deadline until May 15th. So this should be used if you're still waiting to hear back about your final gift aid package. If you submitted a reconsideration and you're still waiting to hear from us, you do have that option. Or you can let us know that you're withdrawing your application. And then May 15th is our final deadline by which you need to tell us if you are enrolling or not. We don't have any sort of seat deposit that you need to make when you do these. Keep in mind that if you do receive an offer from us, either an initial gift aid offer or if you do receive reconsideration, the deadline that you are given to respond supersedes these. So if you have received a gift aid offer from us with an April 1st deadline, that should be the deadline that you're using as your response deadline. And that does not have a tentative option. So you do need to tell us a definite yes or no if you are accepting that aid. So let's check in a little bit about where we are in our process. As I mentioned, most of our initial funds have been exhausted at this point. Just to give you an overview of our gift aid kind of process and how we allocate funds, we do allocate about 50% for initial awards. And so we have about half left over right now for reconsideration. So I do want to stress, I know many of you received that email, which might have been distressing about not getting an initial gift aid offer. Many people received that. It does not put you at any sort of disadvantage. Every single year, I've seen people go from nothing in initial to a very substantial offer in reconsideration. So it by no means means that we're not interested in you or anything like that. It just, again, is because we do have, we unfortunately cannot offer everybody gift aid. And so that's the way that we have done it historically sort of in these two rounds. So please, please submit reconsideration. As I mentioned, a lot of people are successful through that. To give you a general idea of how many people receive gift aid from us, for last year's class, about 43% of students received gift aid from us. The average award is around $36,000 a year, and most of our gift aid awards are between $20,000 to $45,000 a year. It is very rare for us to give a full tuition scholarship. Most of those have already been awarded at this point, and those would be through the Opportunity Scholarship, which is for first-generation college grads, or the public interest awards, which again are for full tuition scholarships for those with a dedicated history of public service. Those are really the only ones that we offer that are full tuition. So generally 45,000 or around that mark is sort of the very high end of what we give out for awards, to give you a general idea. I will say, I think in the email that most of you were sent, there is the frequently asked questions document. It's also on our website, on the admitted students website, on the scholarship and financial aid information page. It is very extensive. We try to answer all of the questions that we get every year. So that you have all of that at your disposal. So if you do have a question that's not answered here, or you want to refer back to any of the statistics that I'm talking about, all of those are listed in that FAQ document. So really try to read through that pretty thoroughly before you submit your reconsideration request, just so that you are aware of how our process works, and the issue that you can only submit the form once. And so it does take a little bit of decision making beforehand as you go through the process. I did want to mention we have been getting requests for extensions for initial gift aid offers. So those that were awarded initial awards were most likely given an April 1st deadline, which is coming up shortly. For those of you that do need some additional time to make a decision, submit reconsideration, maybe you have other awards that you're considering and other schools that you need to visit, you can request an extension by emailing admits@law.berkeley.edu. We try our best to get back to you within about 2 to 3 business days, so I would keep that in mind when you're requesting an extension. As part of our process, when you're requesting an extension, if you got an initial award from us, you do need to submit the reconsideration form before we grant an extension request. And so that is because we are quite generous in our extension requests. Most people, as long as you give us some explanation as to why you need an extension, are being granted an extra week or two to make a decision. But when we get back to you, we do want to make a comprehensive decision. So for those of you that are at some point think you might go through reconsideration, that is part of it, that you do need to submit that form so that we then give you the extension. And then by that time, you would have heard from us as well about reconsideration. So just keep that in mind when you're thinking about requesting an extension. And then keep in mind as well, please give us a couple days before April 1st if you are requesting an extension, because if you email us on April 1st, we might not be able to get back to you in time. So as far as kind of thinking about the timeline for that, I would build in at least a couple of days. Okay, so let's move on to talk more in depth about what the reconsideration process looks like. So firstly, it is through a form on our website. So it is linked on the admitted students webpage, on the scholarship and financial aid page. There is a link there that takes you to the form. And you can request reconsideration under 4 different circumstances. Either you received an initial aid offer from us, and you have an offer from another school, or you believed that your financial circumstances have changed since you were admitted, if something very recently happened that we would need to know about. Or you did not receive an initial gift aid offer from us and you have an offer from another school, or you believe your financial circumstances have changed since you were admitted. Most people, I would say, submitting the form, 80+% go through one of the first 2 options. That you either have an offer from us or don't, and you have another offer that you're considering from another school. There are some awards that are not eligible for reconsideration. So if you have any of the awards listed here, our early decision, the full tuition scholarships that we offer, the Native American Opportunity Plan, or the scholar or fellowship awards, those are not eligible for reconsideration just because all of these are either at full tuition or very close to full tuition. And so there really probably wouldn't be anything extra we can do for you in reconsideration. So we do want to try to save reconsideration for those that either received no money from us in initial or maybe a Dean's Fellowship during the initial awarding round. How do you request reconsideration? As I mentioned, there is a form on our website, and so that is the only way to request it. If you are emailing our office or something like that, we are just going to send you the link to the form. That is really the only way we can track the awards. To give you an idea, every year we receive about 500 requests for reconsideration, so we have a huge volume to go through in a very short amount of time. And so that's why we do ask you a lot of questions in that form. But again, we try to be comprehensive. We try to get all of that information from you, and so that we can review those awards and try to get back to you when you need to hear from us. And then in the form, be prepared to provide your name, your LSAC number, one of those 4 reasons that you are requesting reconsideration. Documentation to support the request. So for most of you that have an offer from another school, we would just need a PDF uploaded. If you're requesting based on financial grounds, if there is something specific that you are alluding to, like a tax document or something like that, you can upload it. If you're not sure, you can always email us and we'll let you know what we would require in those sorts of circumstances. Keep in mind for if you have an offer from another school, it does need to be, a written formal offer. So we don't need to see like the entire document, but at least the first page or 2 that does list the school name and the exact award amount that you're getting per year. If you receive a verbal offer or something like that from the school, that would not count. So we do need something in writing from the other school. You're going to list the specific dollar amount that you are requesting from us, and the deadline date of the other school's offer, so when you need to get back to them. And then there's a text box with basically any further information that you'd like to provide. So you can think of that as like a mini letter of continued interest, I think. It's important for us to know sort of why, what still draws you to Berkeley. Are there anything else we should know that maybe you didn't mention initially in your application, special ties to the area, for example? If you are submitting a request for school that is not on our list that we recommend that you use, which I'll talk about in a little bit, maybe putting some more reasoning there as to why you are requesting from that school. And ultimately, like, what are the biggest factors in your, decision when you're thinking about law school? So, it does give you, it's about a paragraph or so. It's not super lengthy. It's about 1,500 characters. So you don't have a ton of space. So I would kind of think about what are those things you really want us to know about that, again, is not included anywhere else in your application. And then let's talk a little bit about important notes in regards to reconsideration. So firstly, you may only submit one other offer. And I know this is annoying, and the reason that we do this is because, as I mentioned, we do have 500 people submit reconsideration every year. It's already a very time-intensive process. And we try our best to try to get back to you by the deadline that you have from the other school. We cannot guarantee that. But we try our best to try to get back to you. And in order to do that, we have to streamline this process. So if you can imagine if somebody submitted a form and then you get an offer the next week and maybe you get a different offer and those have different deadlines and we were constantly updating the information, it would just become impossible for us to provide a timely review of your application. And so that is why we do ask you only submit one other offer. So my biggest piece of advice is to wait. If you are not sure what you should be doing right now, if you do not have another offer that you're really considering at this point, wait. It's not a first come, first serve system. You do not have to submit your form today. We still reserve money throughout the process. We have years of historical data on this process, and I can assure you, we do not use up all of our funds in the first round of offers. We know that many people actually don't get offers until mid-April from schools. And a lot of schools give that have very competitive offers. They give you until May 1st to make a decision. So you still have time. So do not feel like you need to submit it now or within the next week. Unless you have an offer right now that you're like, I absolutely am going to accept this if I don't hear from Berkeley Law, I would recommend that you wait. So you can absolutely submit now. If you do have an offer in hand that has an April 1st deadline, submit that now so that it gives us time and we can hopefully get back to you by April 1st. But if that's not the case, I know I heard from some of you that attended this session at ASW last week that you hadn't gotten offers from other schools yet, you were still waiting. Then that's absolutely fine. Then I would wait. A lot of offers come out in April, so you have until April 30th to submit this. We save money to the end. So I just want to really stress that point so that you don't think you have to submit that now. Another point is that our gift aid can only cover the cost of tuition. We do not offer gift aid that covers housing. We don't offer like stipends for living expenses or anything like that. So as far as when you're thinking about how much to ask for, the full tuition would be sort of the max of what we could offer. And even then, as I mentioned, it is very rare for us to give full tuition offers. So just kind of factor that in when you're deciding how much to ask for in there. It will elicit a formal response from our office. So if you submit a reconsideration form, as long as you do not withdraw your application, we will still review your request. And you will either get a gift aid offer from us, and it'll say in there, this is in response to your reconsideration request. And it could be for less than the amount that you requested. It could be a match on that we're giving you the amount that you requested, or it could be occasionally for more than what you requested. So it's not like, we do ask, for you to put an amount in there that you're asking for, but it's not a definite yes, no to that. We're not just going to say, no, we're not offering you that, so you don't get any award. I think that just gives us a good sense of like, how much, like, honestly, would it take for you to come to Berkeley Law? But it's possible you might get a gift aid award for less than that amount. Or you would get an email from our office letting us know that we are not able to offer you a reconsideration gift aid award. So you would hear in one way or another from our office. If your gift aid deadline has passed from the other school, as I mentioned, we cannot guarantee that we're able to meet all of those deadlines. The best thing to do is to ask the other school for an extension. And then rest assured, we are trying our best to get through those requests. So again, your request will still be considered even after that date has passed. So there's no need to like email our office to see if we're still responding. We are going to try our best and get back to you as soon as we are able to. And then with our gift aid offers, it does require a firm acceptance of our award. As I mentioned, there's no sort of tentative option. And then if you do accept our offer, then you would need to decline all of your other offers of admissions. You can remain on wait lists. And if you've not heard back an admissions decision from a school, you can wait to hear back from those schools. Okay, so one of the most commonly questions that we receive is, okay, so I'm only allowed to make one offer. Which offer do I use? We know that, we've admitted you are extremely accomplished. We want you here, and most likely you do have other great offers. So how do you make a decision? We used to just allow you to submit any offer from any school, and we still got a lot of questions. So last year we actually did a comprehensive deep dive into our data from the last few years to try to narrow down on what are the schools where we are most likely to grant an award from, either match the other school's offer or partially match the other school's offer. So these are the list of schools, as you can see, I don't think there's major surprises here. They are our list of sort of peer schools where we were either able to partially match or match the other school's offer. So our advice is that if you do have an offer from one of these schools, or maybe multiple of these schools, I would highly recommend using that when you submit your request. If you are fortunate that you have multiple offers from maybe 2 or 3 of these schools or more, then I would consider just submit the one that you are most likely considering. It doesn't necessarily always equal the highest amount, but I think it's helpful to know which of the other school you're most likely considering other than Berkeley. For those of you that are still waiting to hear, again, I would wait. Many schools are still in the midst of awarding, and so even some of these schools on this list, I know send out offers still in April, so you could always hold on and not submit yet. For those of you that do have an enticing offer from a school that's not on this list, I think that's up to you. We do recommend trying to use one of these schools. Again, this is just based on data of which ones we are most likely to try to at least partially match. I can tell you if you have a full tuition offer from another school, and especially if it's not on this list, we're not going to be able to offer full tuition. So if that absolutely is the school that you're considering, the offer you're considering, you can use it in your reconsideration request. I would just think about the dollar amount that you're requesting. Think a little bit more about what that realistically looks for you, of what we could offer that would sway your decision to go to Berkeley. That would not be a full tuition offer. And then as you are comparing your different offers, what are the things to look at? You, of course, are going to be comparing tuition costs, cost of living amongst different schools. Make sure when you're comparing cost of living that you're looking at the same things from all schools. Some schools include like transportation, books, health insurance, all sorts of things in their cost of living. Some schools don't. So try to get a really accurate picture of what that looks like. Keep in mind for those of you from out of state, most of our students are able to gain California residency after their first year here. And so you would get the benefit of paying in-state resident tuition for your second and third year. Of course, look at outcomes. What are the bar passage rates? What are the career placement rates at all of the schools that you have been admitted to? For those of you that are interested in pursuing public interest down the line, as I know many of you are, that's a big draw for us at Berkeley Law. Look at the school support for that, both in pure numbers of how many are working in public service jobs. Is there summer funding that's guaranteed? We offer guaranteed public service summer funding if you complete pro bono hours. What is the LRAP that's offered at every school? What are those income limits? And then, of course, there's the non-quantifiable factors that I think do play a big role in this, as far as where do you want to be located for 3 years? What is the culture like at each of your school? I know many of you were able to come for ASW last week, and so hopefully you got a good sense of the sort of culture and the community that we have here at Berkeley Law, which I think really makes us a special and unique place. Programming in your particular area of law. These are all things that I'm sure will be, factoring into your decision making. So just to give you some quick examples of when you're like comparing cost of attendance at different schools, I've listed here for Berkeley Law, say you got a $30,000 offer from 3 different schools, what would this look like? So I included our tuition and fees, our living expenses, and then you get your total cost. You subtract out the $30,000 and you're left with your net cost. So from a school like School A, you've got a higher tuition and fees. Keep in mind for most of our peer schools, even most of our public peer schools, our tuition is still the lowest of those. So please keep that in mind when you're factoring those in. Especially for California residents, or knowing that you would get that California residency for second and third year. So School A, the tuition fees are higher, living expenses are slightly lower. You get your total cost, and then your net cost comes out to $84,500. School B, again, you're given a $30,000 award. You've got a slightly higher tuition and fees, but a lower living expenses, and so you get your total cost and then your net cost. So I'm sure most of you have spreadsheets like this when you're reviewing awards, but this would be kind of an example. And then even amongst the like tuition and fees and living expenses, I would make sure to kind of break down of a list of what's included in all of those for schools, because as I mentioned, some sort of costs are hidden in there. And then we are nearing the end, so thank you for bearing with me through this all of this presentation. I did just want to quickly answer the frequently asked questions that we get that our office has already received in the last sort of week or so as you're thinking about reconsideration. So firstly, what happens if you get an quote unquote exploding offer from another school? How do I let Berkeley know, and how fast might you get back to me? So we are not a school that practices these. An exploding offer would be if you get an offer from a school with a deadline within like 24 to 48 hours. We don't practice this. I don't think it's really fair to give somebody a day or two to make this huge decision about where they're attending law school, which is why we typically give you at least 2 weeks to make a decision. And as I mentioned, we are, I would say, quite generous about awarding an extension, although we do only grant one extension. That we are pretty clear about that. We can't continue to grant extensions because we do need to know if you're coming or not, so that that frees up money that we can then award to the many hundreds of people that are still waiting to hear from us. So we're pretty clear with that. But I would say we are pretty generous about our timeline here. So if you do get an offer from a school that does this, where you're given a couple of days or something, you can submit the reconsideration form. One of the questions does ask, is the deadline from the other school within 5 days? And so you can click yes on that. We try our best to review those, but honestly, because we have so many people waiting to hear from us, and because it does take quite some time to review both merit and need-based aid, we generally are not able to meet those deadlines if it's within a day or two. Generally, it takes at least a week or two for us to perform a review and get back to you about gift aid. So that's the best thing to do. Emailing our office is really not going to help the situation. I would go back to the school that put you in this place and go back to them to ask for an extension. That's really our best piece of advice, is to ask the other school for an extension so that we have more time to get back to you. Because yeah, most likely within a day or two, we are not going to be able to get back to you in such a short amount of time. I've not received an initial gift aid offer. Should I wait for that before requesting reconsideration? I think I already went over this. Most of you have already heard back at this point. If you have not, you will hear back from us very shortly. Although you can definitely apply for reconsideration if you have a deadline that's coming up pretty quickly. I have several other offers from other schools that I'm considering. Can I send multiple offers? If not, how do I decide? I think we talked about this. I'm happy to answer questions if there was anything that was unclear about that, or if you have further questions. But we do only accept from one school. My best piece of advice is, yeah, if you are still waiting for like your dream school or like a top choice other school to get back to you about gift aid, I would try to wait as long as possible to hear from them. Every year we have people that submit the form, and then like a week later they get back, this amazing offer from the other school, and they've already submitted their request. So I wouldn't, personally, if I were going through this, I wouldn't submit the form unless I have a really good sense of where my offers lie, depending on which schools I was most likely, interested in attending. So if you still feel like you're waiting for the most part, I would go ahead and wait a little bit longer to submit the form. I have a reconsideration offer from Berkeley Law with a deadline of April 8th. Can I still use the April 15th deadline to accept or decline admission? No. If you receive any sort of gift aid offer from us, the deadline that's attached to that gift aid offer would be your new deadline that you have to respond to us by. I'm still on some of my top choice schools wait lists. Should I request reconsideration now with a different offer, or wait until I hear back from those other schools? So I think wait lists are sort of a different case than if you are admitted to another school and maybe you're still just waiting to hear on gift aid. If you are waitlisted, most schools don't really go to their wait list until the summer. So I would not recommend waiting around to hear if you're, number one, going to get admitted off the wait list, and number two, if you're going to get a scholarship in association with that. So I would probably go with the schools that you've actually been admitted to make, to submit the form. I submitted a request on March 20th. I still have not heard back. So as I mentioned, we have many requests. We do try to get back to people as soon as we're able to. As long as you have not withdrawn, you can know that we are still reviewing your request. There's nothing additional that we need from you, or we'll be in touch if there's anything else we need. But otherwise, it really is probably just due to the volume of requests that we receive, where we sometimes get backlogged with requests. Okay, so I sent in another offer, and that school's deadline was on April 10th. It's now April 9th, and I have not heard back from Berkeley. Will I hear by the other school's deadline? If I don't, is my request for reconsideration moot because the other deadline has passed? And is the offer still going to be considered? So yes, as I mentioned, we try our best to get back. We cannot guarantee it. If it's coming up and we're a day before your other school's deadline, the best thing that you can do is go to the other school and request an extension from us. If you are able to be granted an extension, you can always email us and let us know you were able to be granted an extension. But honestly, even if you don't do that, again, as long as you don't withdraw your application, we'll still be reviewing your offer and just we'll get back to you as soon as we are able to. And then finally, if I accept Berkeley Law's offer, do I have to remove myself from other schools' wait lists or hold lists? Excuse me, you do not have to remove yourself from other schools' wait lists. Um, if you are on a hold list or if you just have not heard back from other schools, I know it's been an unprecedented year in regards to applications and many schools are still reviewing, us included. Then you can still wait to hear if you are admitted to those other schools. You do not need to withdraw your application. And then finally, other types of aid that you should consider outside of the initial or reconsideration awards. We do have continuing student scholarships for second and third years. So a lot of our students are successful in getting those, and those would be in addition to any awards that you might have gotten year one all year. We have donor-based awards that you can apply to. We have the link to the Access Lex database, which has like hundreds of different external scholarships that you can apply for. Many of the uh, high dollar amount scholarships have many applications, but I always recommend looking, like even if it's a few $1,000s, that will help. If you just have to submit an essay. So really look if you qualify for any of those types of things. For postgraduate support, if you're interested at all in public service, definitely look at our LRAP program that can help support you in public interest careers. There's specific support for undocumented students, DACA recipients. There's a page on our website, again, that walks you through what you might be eligible for on our financial aid page. There's support for veterans. There's different work opportunities for second and third year students. And then, as I mentioned, there are hundreds of outside agency awards that the Access Lex database is really extensive. And you can also search by keywords or different identities when you're searching for different awards. And then contact information for most of you and just general questions about gift aid and that sort of thing, you can email admits@law.berkeley.edu. Extension requests should be sent there. If you have general financial aid questions or want to talk to a financial aid advisor, there's the financial aid email there. They also offer one-on-one Zoom advising as well, so you can talk one-on-one with them. And then there's various emails for other offices that you might be interested in contacting as well. Definitely, as I mentioned, financial aid does do one-on-one advising. If you are an international student, undocumented or documented military veteran, if you have adverse credit history or have any criminal convictions, I definitely would recommend reaching out to just talk to them one-on-one, so they can walk you through anything that might be associated with that you would need to know going into law school. And then I think that's the end. Uh, so we still have 20 minutes, a good amount of time for questions, and I know you've been sending them all in. So the rest of the session really is just for you to ask any other questions that you have.
Hi, Alice. So there was a question regarding Of the approximately 500 reconsideration applications per year, about what percentage of students are receiving, favorable response, and how competitive the recon process is?
That's a good question. I don't know if we've actually looked specifically for reconsideration. I think we just looked overall at all of the awards that we offer to come to the figure of the 43%. Um, so it's hard to say. I mean, out of the total awards that we receive, I would say probably, I mean, this is a very rough estimate, maybe like around 50% maybe receive like a positive response from us, but it's hard to know that without looking at a few years of data, so I don't feel confident with that answer, but a lot of people, like we do, as I mentioned, we do save a lot of money for this, and a lot of people are able to kind of greatly shift their reward through this process, so a lot of people are successful in it.
Thank you. Um, The next question we have is, in terms of comparing tuition and cost of attendance, I see slight differences in both perimeters between Berkeley Law's ABA 509 report versus estimated tuition and fees as listed on Berkeley Law's website. For purposes of calculations, should we abide by 509?
I think you would be the one to answer, Lauren. I mean, I think that
Right.
what we
Yeah.
have in the form and on our website is the most accurate data, right?
Correct. So our website was updated with the most recent information for the last academic year. When we were reporting for the ABA reports, we are using at the times the most, up-to-date information. So if you want to know what would be your cost of attendance moving forward, then the closest figures would be from our website. It will be updated during summer for the upcoming academic year. In my presentation last week during ASW, I did briefly mention that for California residents, we're looking around, let me pull up the numbers so I can give you the ballpark information about our cost of attendance next year. We're looking at around 60 for tuition and fees for California residents. We're looking around to $66,000, and for non-resident students, it is around $80,000. Living expenses, we estimate about $37,000. So adding those together, then you're getting up to 110-ish for the cost of attendance. So for that one, I'm gonna mark it as answer as live. Okay, I was typing in the answer for this one. I think Jorge, you were typing in. So that one I'm gonna skip. The next question we have is, if we hear back from a top consideration school about admission a few days before our Berkeley acceptance deadline, what are we supposed to do? Do we request financial aid info ASAP from the other school?
Um, That's a good question. Yeah, in general, it does take some time for schools to get back to you with an offer. So unless they are like admitting you and immediately letting you know, I would probably let the other school know that you have other decisions to make with deadlines that are upcoming. And then if you haven't already requested an extension from us, you could definitely email us and let us know that you just recently got admitted and are requiring an extension. Um, Otherwise, I mean, I think it's rare that this comes up. I haven't really seen it a lot over the years, but if you're ever like unsure, I would just send us an email and we can walk you through what that would look like.
Okay, perfect. And then the next question is, if we applied for BLAS or PI scholars, would our essays play into our recon decision? The answer is yes. We will review all admissions materials that you have submitted when we are reviewing for your recon. So your essays for BLAS or PI scholars will be reviewed. The next question is, how important is the 1500 character statement? How important is the 1500 character statement? What should we focus on in the statement? Our reasons for wanting to attend to Berkeley, or our qualifications for merit-based aid, given the criteria?
Yeah, I would say a little bit of both. That is your space to sort of advocate for yourself. And again, if you see sort of one of those characteristics that we look for merit-based aid, that you're like, wow, I have, 5 years of experience in this very particular area that I'm going to bring to the law school. And so I think that's why you should award me gift aid. Then I think you can put that in there. And then again, just a little bit about why we are still like one of your top choices. I know a lot of you have already written pretty extensively about why you're interested in the school in your application. So I don't mean for you to spend the entire thing talking to us about like every facet of Berkeley that you're excited about, but I would really just hone in on like making sure, that if there is something that's like really stands out to you that is drawing you to from the school, I would focus on that. And then again, I would focus it a lot on sort of advocating for yourself, letting us know if there is any other information that wasn't included that we should be aware of that's going to factor into your decision making. And then, yeah, for those of you using a school that's not on that list, then I think you can use it more as like a little bit of an explanatory information as far as, why is that the other school that you're most likely considering and how does it fare compared to Berkeley Law?
The last question we have is there any benefit to submitting a competing scholarship offer that remains contingent on an interview? I'm concerned about waiting until the offer is finalized because it converts into an exploding offer.
Um, I wouldn't use that. I think I probably know which scholarships you're referring to. If it has not actually been offered to you, if you're just a finalist for an award, you can't use that. You don't know if you're going to get that yet if you still have an interview coming up. Um, so I would wait. And then as soon as you do hear back, submit that. Most of the time you are given at least a few days. But we do see sort of when some of those ones come in and we try our best to get back to you in that time. But I wouldn't use like anything that you haven't absolutely been offered yet. Or you could use an offer from another school. If you still have a very competitive offer that's similar from another school, I would use that. Otherwise, I would wait until you have it in hand.
Okay, another question popped in. I'm still waiting for decisions from many schools. Would I be able to submit a recon form with no competing offers, but instead focus on my strong interest in Berkeley and financial circumstances?
Um, I think it would be better to wait as like I think the main thing that I want to stress is like there is no reason for you to fill out the form now if you are still waiting to hear from other schools. So it sounds like that's the case for you that you're still waiting to be admitted, you're still waiting to see sort of what your packages look like. I would wait. As I mentioned, we are not going to like immediately run out of money and just say this process is over. We have a whole model set up where we have rounds every week that we have designated and specific budgets for all of those. So I can assure you, you don't need to submit today. So I think that is going to be more compelling once you have those in hand. You never know where you might be emailed a really great offer from another school. So I would say wait rather than just submitting with no other offers. Um, unless your financial circumstances have changed drastically since you applied, You could go ahead with submitting under the financial circumstances, but I think it would be more compelling to wait and to see if you get any other offers.
If there are new leadership roles we've taken since we last submitted our application, should we update our CV, including this in the recon form, or how do we present this information to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. If there is anything in your application that you would want to update, most likely a resume, then you can just email our office, just email the admissions office with your, the PDF, and we will add it to your application so that when it gets reviewed, the committee will see all of the materials that are in there, including your new one. So you can always reference it, but you don't need to submit it in the actual reconsideration form. In general, for resume updates, I would say if it's like you've received a significant, if you've received like a promotion, any job changes, any like honors or awards, if you have taken on like significant leadership role, or maybe you just got elected, president of an organization, anything like that, that's a pretty significant change. I would go ahead and submit that. If it's pretty, irrelevant, like if your hours just got slightly changed at work or something, I don't think you need to worry about updating that. But yeah, this is the time to kind of think back on the last few months if there's been any significant changes that you would want us to know about.
Cool. We have two more questions. So the first one, I understand that we should wait to submit reconsiderations until we hear from schools, but my deadline is April 1st. Can we get an extension without submitting a recon? Are there any special circumstances?
In general, no. If you have an offer from us that has an April 1st deadline, we are going to want you to submit the reconsideration. This just makes sure that we're able to get back to you by that deadline because we're not able to grant another extension. So, we just don't want to get in a situation where we grant an extension, say for 2 weeks, and then you might get an offer like at that deadline, and then we're unable to still process your reconsideration, and you would need to let us know. So in order to avoid that situation, that's why we've asked for you to already submit that so that when we do get back to you, you can make a fully informed final decision. We still have, over a week to go, almost 2 weeks actually until April 1st. So there still could be activity happening. So if you're still waiting to hear, I would wait until, next Friday or so. And then you could reach out to our office about getting an extension. But um, by that point, I would try to go ahead with submitting reconsideration with whatever other offer or circumstance that you have.
Is submitting recon with a non-peer school better than submitting with no other offer?
Um, I mean, yes, just like a blanket statement, yes.
Right. I mean, another question that I answered earlier also asked about um, submitting a recon with an offer of admission from a peer school. In my answer to that question was no, because the recon, you either have to use a competing financial aid, gift aid offer from another school, or unusual financial circumstances that happened after you were admitted to Berkeley Law. So if the offer from the other school that you're submitting doesn't have the monetary value to it, then it wouldn't be really considered for the recon. So I know some questions were regarding that, but maybe for this question, it was more towards like, should I still submit a
Yeah.
one? Like if it's from a non-peer school, and I guess, it wouldn't hurt for you to, submit the recon, and ask for us to, reevaluate your eligibility. Whatever the information we have, we will consider to reevaluate. So yeah, I think like Ellis's answer, we would still consider that. We have few more questions coming through. Is it preferable to submit a low offer from a peer-listed school for matching or a high offer from a non-listed but peerish top 20 school?
I would go with the school that's on the list. It's probably going to be more competitive.
Okay. If by the reconsideration deadline we still don't have another financial aid offer and we submit recon based on our skills, what are the chances that we will get granted more money?
I
So if
think,
you don't have another financial aid offer from another school, it's not technically a reason for the recon eligible. So there wouldn't be any chance for you to receive additional funding from Berkeley Law unless the competing offer has um, some financial aid value to it. Between submitting a lower offer from a peer school on a list or substantially higher offer, 75 to 100% of tuition from a non-peer school, which tend to see better offers in recon. I think, Alice, you have already answered that. So the answer is please use the offer from the peer school that has a higher chance. So that one, I'm going to mark it as answered live. Can need-based offers be used like from HYS?
yeah, so Harvard, Yale, Stanford don't give merit aid. And so if we did, so that's the reason we didn't include them on our list. Of course, they're certainly pure schools of ours. Yeah, if you have a pretty significant need-based award from one of those schools, you can absolutely submit that for us to take a look at.
Okay. The next question is the April 1st recon deadline only for people who received initial offers? Yes, many people are referring to April 1st because that's the deadline given to them when they were offered the initial gift date. So that's why they were thinking about applying for recon beforehand so that they can make the decision on their initial gift date and also be considered for reevaluation. I only have another offer from a top 40 school, and I'm afraid I might not hear back from another school anytime soon. Is it worth just submitting?
Um, I think this is part of like it depends on what if you're actually considering that offer. Um, if you do like they've given you a deadline you need to respond to them by. If that is sort of what you're most likely going to accept at this point, then I would submit it. But if you feel like you're probably not going to accept that and you're going to wait anyways to see the other schools, then I would, recommend waiting. So a lot of this has to do with sort of your decision making process and sort of how likely it is that you're actually going to accept these other offers. So I think it would kind of have to do with that. So that's not really something we would be able to answer for you.
All right, I know we have 1 minute left. We have three more questions, so hopefully we can go fast or other questions that we cannot answer live. You're welcome to give us a call, email us your questions, and we're here to help. The first question we have that are unanswered, if we have an update like a new publication at a prestigious law journal, would this be something that could be considered for recon? Should we send this update to the admits email first and then mention it in our recon paragraph?
You can definitely send us an updated resume. It's up to you if you want to mention that or not, if that's something substantial for you that you think stands out in your application or not. So there's not necessarily a need to mention it, but I would definitely update us with the resume.
Okay, Jorge, if you can answer the last two questions, I'll just go and read this one. Apologies if this has been answered. Still a little confused. If we anticipate needing an extension, should we plan to request an extension after reconsideration? if getting an extension for reconsideration kind of a waste of your one extension?
I don't think understand that question. Do
Wait for
you understand what they're asking, Lauren?
one. So the first part of the question, yes, you should plan to request an extension after reconsideration. Is getting an extension for recon kind of a waste of your one extension? I don't know what that.
I Yeah, I'm a little bit confused. That'd probably be something you want to maybe call us or email us about. I'm not really sure if you mean you get a reconsideration reward request. Like, at what point are you requesting an extension? So a little bit confused, but I think we can answer it if we just kind of clarify what you're asking.
All right, cool. So we're still getting some questions, but time is running out. Thank you so much for Alice, Jorge, answering, all the questions that are coming through and also presenting regarding the recon process. So as we mentioned, if you have further questions, if you need more help understanding our recon process, please feel free to reach out to us. You can schedule an appointment online. You could give us a call, email us your questions, and we'll get back to you. All right.
Yeah,
Well, thank
thank you so
you.
much for joining us. Thanks, Lauren and Jorge.
Yeah, thank
Have
you,
a good evening.
everyone. Bye bye.